Derek and I became friends 13 years ago, which
Crazy.
is really cool. I realized that today because Derek's 45, I'm 32. So I knew him when he was 32. I saw his body decay in his 30s as it naturally should. And now I've seen him reverse that in his 40s. So now I'm looking forward to my 40s going, wow, my son is 3 years old. This is amazing. I get to keep enjoying life with him. This is something I didn't know. And no, 45 is not that old. But I thought it was. That's the point.
Yeah.
Derek made me realize 45 is not that old. We'll kick it off right from no knees over toes. No knees over toes. Help take the fear out of that.
Yeah, a lot of people, man, think that 45 is old. And like me going into ATG, understanding what we're going to talk about today, some of the don'ts. Like I thought when I was in college, what I'm about to teach on the sled, don't put your knees over toe, don't do a lot of things. But as I started doing those and adapting my body to certain movements, then my body started adapting and becoming more healthy. So
Exactly.
You can kind of get going.
Let's get a
why.
side angle right from the beginning. Sled is the simplest way to realize that you can train your knee over your toe because the resistance is here. So he's challenging himself in a knees over toes position, but the weight is not bearing down on him. We've done demos where my mom tried to drag a 1,000-pound sled and it just didn't move, but she was totally safe. So of course I take it much further with knees over toes stuff. So I'm not saying start here. Okay, start there, do 5 sets of that. No, I'm saying that with the sled you can realize that it's safe.
Yeah, and this is something I've been doing pretty much every day for the past, since me and Ben pretty much met. And my body just kind of told me, man, this is right for me, you know? So sled, putting my knee over toe and really getting in those deeper ranges have been able to help me out, man. So
look at this position here. So he's actually trying to reach his toes behind his knees. So he's able to get strong through that foot. The human body adapts. It's not an all or nothing. This is not a shotgun approach.
Yeah.
Let's see if it survives. But the avoidance approach can be a long-term disaster.
yeah, and we've seen what the avoidance approach does to people, man. When they try to do certain things, their body get in compromised positions, and you know they end up getting hurt, and they end up having surgeries, and it's a downhill spiral. And I got caught up in that until I started embracing the don'ts, so to speak.
Life does not have to be so fragile.
Right, straight
There's
up.
no don't for the human body, which I'll demonstrate embarrassingly much more.
Yeah, my man's crazy though.
How many don'ts am I doing right now? All right.
Like seriously, I'm gonna get my man to.
Don't go so hard on me in the comments for that little dance move. Or I got 2 toddlers. There's really nothing embarrassing you can do. Ben Clarefield has 4 kids. I mean, you kind of lose the embarrassment. Ben's 43, had knee surgeries. Like me, had a mentor in Charles Poliquin who helped us realize, oh wait, maybe we don't have to fear some of these things. And he has a successful personal training gym. Like, this is no joke. So you must have had 1,000 times a client say, oh, I've been told not to do this or something. So he's going to help explain not only knee over toe, but also getting into deeper bending. How do you take the fear out of deeper bending? And he'll show you that he can still deep bend.
I had, part of anyone's connection here is who's had knee surgery, and a lot of us have had knee surgeries. I had knee surgery on my right knee, and I have a tear in my left knee, but I haven't had surgery on it. So, but I think Ben's absolutely right. This idea of fear of I can or I cannot do something versus the idea that actually you meet the movement wherever you are and slowly progress it over time with patience. And so I think movement is curative. I think the movements we do are curative. And for me to have conceived that at my ancient age, I can squat in a way, even though I've had surgeries and have tears, it's kind of great. So I think an easy way to get into it is, I love using the buddies, but any elevation, even without the barbell on your back, allows you to stay more upright and drive the knee past the toe and get into a deep position without worrying that much about ankle mobility. And that's something that people should continue to work on, but that can take a long time. So just the ability to be here, for me, having had my surgeries, I feel grateful. But the way I really like helping people, is slow, steady movements and sinking into the body and pausing in that position, getting comfortable there. So I'm just gonna do
When we're kids, our hip mobility is so crazy. Like, I can do a deep squat without my knees going over my toes. And as I said in a video recently, if we lived in a world where people went into the gym and they only did knees over toes and no one was allowed to strengthen the back, I'd be the knees behind toes guy. I'd be like, hey, no, you can also strengthen, so it's not that elevating the heel is mandatory or better. It's different. The more the heel is elevated, the more it becomes a knee exercise, but that doesn't mean that it's this all or nothing. Even within the movement, it's all just degrees of movement. So for most people who have lost that childlike mobility, it can help to elevate the heel. And maybe you could show, because I know you also use for your clients, deep split squat progression.
Yeah, I think the really cool thing with movement as being curative is understanding there's regressions and progressions for everything. There's no wrong thing. It's where do you meet the athlete or the client or yourself where you can go. So I think the great thing is having assistance and starting, even if the person's very tight, you can slowly get people to drive the knee, and if the ankle's tight, you're gonna slowly get that feeling in the ankle and the back hip, and it's an amazing thing when you can rely on this and there's not the fear of having it be forced upon someone right at the beginning, that they don't have the balance, that you can slowly work at getting that capability. So I think that's a great methodology that we use. We make sure that,
Yeah.
the homemade version.
Well, just showing how you could seat here, boom. You could go slow, pause. So just with the chair, you could already start, and you could see for yourself right now while you're watching. Now imagine if over time, you put in that adaptation. So yeah, I think these should be in the gyms to make it user-friendly, measure your progress, but there's nothing, the equipment is also to take the fear out, make it easier for you, but you could start with the chair right now. Now, no knee over toe, no deep bending. Those are the two. I was on painkillers for my knees, having surgeries, quite frankly depressed in life. You can have something going on with your body that maybe it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's hampering your ability to live life. A lot of people are depressed just because of body issues holding them back. Let me tell you, being hooked on painkillers when you're a teenager, it gets weird. And so then understanding these, seeing that I didn't have to be scared of them, I've honestly been grateful ever since. Like, I still wake up and I'm like, whatever might be going on in life, I'm like, the fact that I can go play my sport, exercise my legs without fear, I'm grateful today. So this stuff helped me do that.
The idea that movement is curative is a nice big point, but I think that
Delete the word curative before. Is someone listening in on this?
But I know we're not allowed to say it, but I said it. Oh well.
He'll come up with a different word. We'll edit it in. It'll sound.
I think movement as a solution to various problems. I think, and I think the way you get there is having the ability to understand that it's okay to regress and take time. And I think finding ways to not understand that it's different movements, it's actually a progression or regression of movements, and having the ability to be patient with the process and realize that it takes time. I think that's a key to this too, is that it doesn't get solved in one day, but repetitive
There's gambling,
practice.
There's long-term investment.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for the long-term investment I started putting in 13 years ago that makes it now, so it's not a gamble now. Life is less risky now. And speaking of that, a huge one that there's fear over, for good reason, is the spine and moving the spine, because back pain causes even more painkillers than the knees do. So even though knees is what I'm really passionate about, there's actually more people out there suffering because of spine issues limiting their life. Jeff Wolf taught me in person 7 years ago. I don't remember what he said, but I have never feared moving the spine any which. Here we go.
I can't even do that now.
I don't fear my spine because whatever he taught me 7 years ago. So I thought there's literally no one better on earth I could bring to make you less fearful.
Yeah.
What'd you teach me?
Well, today we're gonna go a little bit over spine flexion. So rounding your back in general is oftentimes, pretty much told that it's a no-no. You're gonna hurt your back, those kinds of things. But we train a lot of different things, especially in the gym. We train a lot of extension. Some people will train rotation to some degree, but still flexion is one that I see a lot that people just are still really afraid of. And even if I post it on my page now, even though I've been, training like this for years with no issues, a lot of people will tell me anytime I round my back that I'm going to hurt my back. But there's a lot of ways to do it. In sport, you're going to see guys get into positions where they're rounded over and flexed. Wrestling, rugby, a lot of contact sports. But even just in life, kids, bending over to pick up your kids, groceries, just basic tasks require you round your back. So, there's a lot of ways you can do it. We can definitely start body weight, and I'll use this equipment here. You can also use different kinds of weight too. And I think how much you train it and how much load you use to train it is going to be relative to your goals and what you need to do. You know, if you're a mom or a dad and, you know, you're relatively fit, but you're just, you know, want to train some flexion in your back to just, you know, have a safety net for when you are playing with your kids or when you do go to the park or want to go do different things. But if you're a weightlifter or you're a power lifter or you spend a lot of time lifting weights, you know, we know for sure that a lot of studies say that deadlifts and squats, we're gonna have spinal flexion during these movements. So the stronger you are, the heavier you'll probably want to train the movement. So, you know, all goals are different and all goals are relative, but, you know, one of the ways, the Jefferson curl is one that I've used for a lot of years. I'll actually just do body weight first before I even use load, because a lot of people can't even round their back. A lot of people are just kind of stuck, you know, especially in the strength and conditioning world, where we've been told for so many years that neutral spine is like the only safe spine position, you know, and it's ironic that most people will hurt their spines when they round them, but they've never trained it. So what do you expect, you know? So, you know, Jefferson curls are something that you can do just standing on the floor. When you have enough flexibility, you can use an elevated object like this, because, you know, you'll start with just the head, you know, bending the chin down to your chest, kind of reaching your arms out in front of you, and just rounding your spine and going nice and slow. You know, go as deep as you possibly can, and then use your hips to come back up. You can do that for reps. You know,
So
just
he's
to
putting
get
time
the
under
movement.
tension. Yeah, he's putting time under tension in this position,
Yeah.
rather than thinking of it as an all or nothing, that you never, so if you never train this position, but then you go out of position in life.
That's right.
That's one example that people have reported, like, wow, I'm so glad I trained that.
Yeah.
But I think there's also, because I observe my kids, and it's really natural for them to have their spine
yeah.
rounded. So I think there's something, I hate to use the word magical, but that's how I feel about training. I think there's something magical going on in actually using your spine, especially since strength training, for good reason. Let's say
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
deadlifting, squatting.
Yeah.
Like, we're not trying to teach people, here's your squat, boom. No,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
because we're spending time strength training, trying to prevent the back to round, I feel like there's something magical about embracing the counter side of that. ATG is all based not on one thing being magical, but on the balance of it. So he said earlier that the stronger you are, deadlifts, squats, then the more you might need to be good at this.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like one of the things I see all the time is, you know, you'll have the person who will come to you and say, oh, you know, well, I hurt my back when it rounded under load when I was deadlifting X amount of pounds. And it's like, well, yeah, you go from never ever training that motion of your spine ever to now instantly it's loaded up with 500 pounds. And this is not a movement that you're even going to train with 500 pounds, but just having some resilience in this position, you know, is probably a good idea. Not only that, you know, it's always weird to me when people, you know, they try to say, well, you know, neutral is, your tissues can adapt in certain positions. They can adapt in extension, they can adapt in rotation, they can adapt in this neutral position. But for some reason, all of a sudden when we round our spine, our tissues can't adapt to that position. It's just such a weird, just such a weird logic to have, you know, because like no range, there's nothing that says a certain range of motion and the tissues in that range can't adapt. All living tissue can adapt. So as long as you train it, it's going to adapt to do so.
Yeah, and one thing Jeff taught me that never left me was that the tests saying that spinal roundings were bad was not on living humans, it was on skeletons. So if you only test a skeleton, I feel like this would be the optimal exercise.
Yeah.
I mean, if you tested all of a sudden, we would negate curls, anything strength-wise. If you use any part of a skeleton enough, it's going to wear out. But if you gradually use a body, like, okay, then is the best life to just stay at home, never go out, never try to meet someone, never try to engage in life? You increase your risk. But that's why the point of this video is we're not saying just increase your risk and go for it, which I would actually still take that route. I would still take the route of screw it, like, hold this one. I would still rather have this route of like, oh, all right, there's my lower back rounding. Try to hurt yourself and hopefully, I would still take that route over not doing it. But in hindsight, just like with the knee, I believe in a system where you never feel under risk. And actually one that Jeff taught me as well, that I've never stopped doing. Drew will figure it out. One that I've never stopped doing is actually an elephant walk where you're straightening one leg at a time. And I only realized it much later that the time spent here, that's that's actually valuable time under tension. I think I could actually maintain a good ability in a rounded position just off elephant walk compared to the norm. How much you load it, then I would say is relative to, well, how much are you loading resisting that position? So it's your own balance within you.
Exactly.
But it's not as scary as you think. And actually, there's another guy on Instagram who I respect for standing up for this, Atlas Power Shrug, he's called.
Oh, yeah.
And now he does them with actually extreme, like he treats it as maximum effort lifts.
He'll go full tilt. Yeah.
I'm not saying that any exercise, like, okay, a good knee exercise. Now do split squat maximum. That's not my approach. My purpose is to see how safely I can do it. But just as I demonstrate this stuff all the time, he demonstrates what happens, that you can go heavy and you can adapt. It's not as scary. So if he's doing 300 plus pounds and I'm using a lightweight, it's surprisingly simple. And he had one point, which is why I brought him up, is because he made a really good point that also stuck with me, which is that rounded back training was actually a natural part of training before the skeleton research on don't round it back. Meaning the new era of lower back health is don't move the back. And I would say, I'm not saying that's working. The new era of no, look at Arnold, deep squatting, heels out, like we're doing this now. It's, oh my God, that was actually okay. That wasn't controversial. So what we're doing in this video, we're just trying to take the fear out for you. We've shown a number of ways so far on each point. No knee over toe, no deep bending, no spinal rounding, ways that you can safely start training it. We're not saying to be risky, but
just
I could rant on this all day.
All training really is quote unquote calculated risk, right? So you just have to know what your goals are, what the demands that you're going to place on the body to achieve those goals, and depending on who you are, that's going to be different. Like I said, the average person should probably train spinal flexion in some capacity because there's things that we do in our daily life every single day where we round our back. Again, if you're a strength athlete or even just an athlete in general where you play sports and you're going to be in compromising positions under a high amount of force, you are the person that probably would want to take it a little bit more seriously than others. So we're not saying, load up as much weight as you can and round your back. No, that would be ridiculous for any exercise, not just rounding your back. And that really is the point. The point is treat it like any other exercise, progressively overload it, relative to what your goals are, and it's really that simple.
Just a simple point that I think can help summarize all of this is if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
So if you don't use it, you lose it. That's a great first principle, but I think that what's really great to hear is slow and steady progression or regression. And I think that's the thing is people are afraid, back to this awesome point that Ben made, is people are afraid, and I love, it's really great seeing ways of getting people to not be afraid with the idea that we can do amazing things. So,
and just fitness in general, people have enough reasons not to train and not to work out. So, the more fearful are people of training and moving, the more reasons and excuses that they make just not to train. I try to take that away as much as possible. So
I love it. And Jeff, Ben, Derek may be able to help out on the next one as Marcel goes. But Marcel grew up in tennis, where actually the big don't was like don't strength. There was this fear around strength training, as if you strength train, now you're going to create ill effects.
Right.
So I think the fear in all these cases was understandable to some extent. But my conclusion over time, my duty to you is to help you not fear it and understand it on a higher level. So he's actually going to show you some strength training that has directly made it safer for him to play tennis. Let's see your work, and you can recap, and if you guys can help me, any points on the shoulders.
Right, so with tennis, and I'm doing tennis just because I've always played tennis, but this is for baseball, football, any kind of shoulder-intensive exercise that the sport itself produces injury. The external rotator has been an exercise that has just bulletproofed and made it pain-free for me to be able to express power. Now, why would that be? Now, in the external rotation, similar to how we train step-ups and getting strong in the reverse of the output of power, we're also doing that with the shoulder. You're externally rotating, which is the opposite motion of a throw. We have many clips of me serving. You'll see my arm gets thrown out this way. There's a lot of force production being put out in that direction. So when you get the muscles that are responsible for channeling or controlling that motion, you're actually able to put out more power. So in this movement, these two muscles back here, the stronger I get them, the more power I'll be able to safely output. You'll see this exercise very commonly in rehab with like banded exercises, banded external rotation, which is great. That's a regression to this movement. But I haven't commonly seen in tennis where people actually get strong in this position. So you keep gradually loading the exercise, little by little getting stronger, and you're actually able to output more power.
One thing to add.
Yeah.
Marcel's making a great point that this is absolutely connected to athletic performance. So any throwing sport, hitting sport, or punching sport, this is directly correlated to having more power output. But it's also fantastic for everyone because what it does is the stronger the shoulder girdle, if someone fell, which is something that older people have to think about, and anyone, or in an icy environment where I'm from, so the ability to place your hand down and have a strong shoulder girdle actually minimizes injuries in basic life. So it's absolutely athletic performance, but it's also general happiness and safety for less fear of falling.
Exactly.
So that the shoulder girdle doesn't get messed up. So it's athletic performance and living better and better posture. And we're commenting on fantastic posture. We see that with these guys, but that's partially the strength of the musculature, the rotator cuff. So it's not just athletic performance, it's also athletic performance. It's not just safety, but it's also aesthetic in that it makes people look better because instead of being hunched over in the day and age of this, it really allows for a musculature that can hold up a posture to be proud of. So
It's true, man. I always tell people, man, they get mad at me. I say you can grow a little taller because before I started doing these motions, like you said, I was kind of leaned over, hunched over. Even like that half an inch or a quarter of an inch, that makes a big difference, man, in overall aesthetic and how you feel and how you just look in your clothes, too.
Totally.
Man. Like, you know what I mean? So shout out to everybody that just want to look good, too, at the same time. Like, you know what I mean? Because fitness has a lot to do with that, too.
Well,
like,
the
you know
idea
what I mean?
is what we do is it's about form, but our form, that follows the function. So we're building a nice aesthetic form, but it's because we chase function. So it's a cool marriage on that thing, and it's the results are evident.
And another exercise that helps contribute to this nice posture, this athletic upright posture, is this next exercise, the trap 3 raise. If you guys ever
one of
do
my
this
favorites.
exercise, you're gonna feel it very low in your back because that's where the lower portion of the trap connects.
He's a freak, too, man.
So the
10
trap 3
kilograms
raise
is monstrous for this.
Right, this is 10 kilos. Being able to raise through is going to immediately challenge this hunched position by raising your arms up and staying upright. And this is also, for me, tennis is very important because I need to be able to have a very open and mobile upper body, both for the serve, different forehands, backhands, all this live and active movement. Being able to have that range of motion is very important.
Yep, and he could start these with a pound. You could even
Right.
start with a cable machine or something.
Just hands.
Yeah, it's true. You could start with your
Yeah.
hands. We actually have a lot of success with people doing it where they actually pull themselves into position and then just try to control the way down. 'Cause
Exactly.
You may notice, if you're more like this, you may notice it's like hard to even get the area to work. You've got a lot of success. Boom, boom, and then fighting down.
I've seen a lot of really strong people. I've seen a lot of really strong people with poor posture that couldn't do more than 5 pounds on this exercise. So I don't know if you want to speak to that. Like, what is that imbalance in that? Because I've seen a lot of like real strong people that take 3 pounds and can't get it up. So
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the training you do has certain adaptations. So with ATG, we're just trying to make these adaptations balanced. We're trying to have no weak or tight links. So these are a couple that it just shows an example that telling a blanket statement of making an athlete fear strength training. You have so much better of life ahead by understanding how strength training could apply for you. And for Marcel, there's overuse of this.
Right.
So he now can have a strength system in exact opposite of the overuse. He's able to fix his chronic elbow pain, shoulder pain, things that he thought, well, that's just part of tennis. I thought knees was just part of basketball. If maybe this is like a 10-second explanation. Basketball is forward pounding and then stopping, so backward sled and then full range of motion. Those are the two things that basketball are not. So
Right.
I'm literally doing the two opposites. The two most opposite things of basketball would be backward and full range of motion. And those are actually like, so that just balanced me up, and then I found I could play my sport. So it's actually a beautiful thing when you realize how this balance can allow you to be healthy. The last one on the strength training side, I used to fear neck training. Now I don't fear neck training. Ben Clairfield taught me how to not fear neck training. Again, it's understandable why I feared it. Like, I'm not judging anyone out there. Like, I have feared all the things in this video. So show us how to not fear neck training. I'll bring over something to show more advanced progressions.
I think
we've got a wall right here
Yeah.
you can use.
Jumping into the deep end often makes people really feel afraid of a movement. And I think, seeing phenomenal neck strength with wrestlers or jiu-jitsu athletes or, all that kind of stuff can make people feel like it's only for those people. But everyone needs it. And I think everyone knows that this is a very common experience in this day and age. So everyone needs neck training. It's not just athletes. Any contact sport athlete needs it immensely because neck strength minimizes injury chances and concussions, and it helps with that, which is obviously high risk. So any contact sport should train neck. But I think everyone should because of our problematic posture. So I like sometimes a towel or one of these, it's great. And you start really close, and feet, the closer your feet, the easier it is. The further away, the harder it is. And just up and hold, and 8-second pause, and then come back down. That's an easy way for anyone to start and just get some tension on that neck so that people can start to work on that forward neck tilt, which is also high risk for low back injuries. So,
Yeah, I think because of the modern posture, just as I feel like there's something magical to the circulation you get from rounded spine training, the adaptation you get. I also feel like there's something for the whole backside of the body to training the neck. And that was when I was afraid of, and I started like that, and I found, oh wow, I can safely train neck. So can my mom. My mom will be 70 in a week. Every point of the ATG system, for me to honestly put it into the ATG system, I was like, I have to feel safe that my mom can do this. She can safely do all these things. She found that she could train neck. It was really awesome. Now I use either a bench or when I have back bench, I just love this, boom. I'm engaged. I'm thinking in reverse of that modern posture. Ben taught me 3 rep, 8-second hold. That's what I've used since. I do a set. I think do 1 set to start.
Yeah.
Start with the towel against the wall. How gently could you get into it and feel it working?
I think the wall is a great idea. I tell anyone that trains neck, be very careful, especially if you train an athlete or a client that's never done it before, because you can feel headachy and it's very, very sensitive. So I agree that it's, we talked about
That's why I
this.
saved this one for last too. It's understandable to have caution about these things.
It's a sensitive place that you shouldn't go full tilt motion, a ton of load, but it's something that, again, I think like the back, slow and steady progressions where there's not, no one's running anywhere. And I think that's something to really take into consideration, a patience with training. So the neck, I find, I trained neck too hard one time, and I couldn't hold my head up, and I was trying to eat my lunch, and it was...
Oh, you had like delayed onset muscle soreness?
Yeah. Oh, it was really hard. So I highly recommend not pushing people too fast, too hard with that, because they can really get a reaction. But again, I think like anything, regression and progression. So I love starting with the wall with people and then working towards what Ben did. Obviously, it's an impressive feat, but again, contact sports I think is really important for people to train the neck, but that's where we start, from the wall all the way down to the ground, I think it's great.
And we started from the sled, and that would be something so fundamental that anyone could do and start doing and get circulation and strengthen from the ground up. You don't have to do anything in this video, but now you at least have the tools. We will do one bonus section on sports and sports form and some of the things we can be fearful of there. All right, we got one mic so it doesn't get out of hand. We're gonna do our best because these 3 guys really understand positioning when it goes outside of what we're told is okay. So we're often told, like, don't let your knees in. But Leonard made millions of dollars with this stance so he could step that way. It changed my ability to play defense. Every time Corlin jumps, one of the highest jumpers in the world, he's in that position. Jeff understands this. I don't even know how to explain this. This might get out of hand with the 3 of us, but we're trying to take the fear out of these positions we're not supposed to be in. Who wants to give it a shot?
I'm down. Well, technically, I think if you're going to go jump, if you angle your foot in a certain angle and you have your knee over your toe, you have more power coming from the position rather than this. for a 1 foot jumper, you rarely put your knee over your toe. But as a 2 foot jumper, it's actually safer to jump like this. So ideally, you'll end up in this position anyways, which is a safer position. I think that a lot of people don't train that way as far as trying to be a stronger jumper or a higher jumper because they're kind of scared of getting into a certain position. But if you're able to get your knee over your toe in this position, you're able to explode even higher. I remember when I was like 15, my first jump, I actually put my knee over my toe, but it hurt. So my goal was like, how can I make sure that this position don't hurt if this is where I'm gonna be at when I actually jump? So training an ATG system and put my knee over my toe with the Poliquin step-ups, the VMO squats actually helped me be a better athlete, but also a healthier athlete and one of the highest jumpers in the world.
I love it. What he's saying is sometimes the best performance in the world is not going to look like the safest position. Like, we got to train to be safe in that position, and that's what he does. I know Leonard, I mean, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, your knee is supposed to go in. I actually learned so well from him, I could practically teach all this stuff now. But like, what made you do that? Did anyone tell you, I remember coaches used to try to tell you were doing it wrong, but then you were actually figuring out stuff they didn't know.
I think the most important thing I noticed being in that position, it allowed me to move lateral quicker, right? So I had the knees in. If I wanted to step laterally, right, just anticipating the guy movement, I can. Here, if I'm there,
then to go there,
yeah, got to bring it in.
Time is ticking.
And that was the biggest thing is how do I minimize all false movements to basically make my job more efficient. Yeah. So that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and I remember one time posting this tip from Leonard like this, and I got so many people hating on me. They actually used video of that. They used your video to say how dangerous this is that we're teaching it. Dangerous. The dude is making millions of dollars in the NFL. This is his stance. It's not a theory to me. That's his stance. I'm sharing data that can help somebody. So maybe Jeff can recap for us. So yes, if someone was so weak that they couldn't stand like this, like if someone couldn't squat like this and they could only squat like that because they were weak, that wouldn't be good, but we should be able to be in that position safely. How can you kind of recap all this up?
I think ultimately, without going into the infinite amount of hours of anecdotes of amazing athletes that find themselves in this position, and not only do they find themselves in this position, they produce a lot of force from this position. I'll go from it more of an anatomical perspective where a lot of us understand that our glutes are powerful hip extenders. But like all muscle groups, in order for our glutes to shorten and extend our hip, they have to lengthen. And adduction, which is the femur coming inwards relative to our hip, allows the glute to actually stretch through the frontal plane so that way when we go to extend the hip, the glute is coming from a stretch position to which it can now shorten. So that's one of the primary reasons you're going to see that strategy used all the time is it's just a strategy to lengthen the hip so we can shorten it to produce a lot of hip extension.
Beautiful. Appreciate these guys, some of the best in the world at what they do. Hopefully this entire video just took a lot of fear out of the body for you. I'll add one more there. If you're a young athlete and someone is telling you that your form is wrong, first, take your time. Observe those in your field. Like a coach would have told me that Leonard's stance was wrong. A coach would have told me that Cortland's jump to be one of the highest jumpers in the world is wrong. You even see Usain Bolt. I remember reading an article, wow, he's the fastest man ever with bad form. So shout out to David Weck, the creator of the Bazoo Ball, who has taken so much heat and continues to take heat for showing that the best runners in the world actually are not like this, where we're taught that the spine must not move when we run, and the spine actually moves. And you may have been taught like, oh, your running form's bad or this. Well, I remember being taught to run like this, and I ran a 6-second 40 at Largo High School my sophomore year that I will never forget. Drew went back to the coach, got video of me playing. You can see me with a breakaway steal. No one's within like 10 feet of me. Everyone catches up to me. So, and I was, studying everything and doing everything right. Well, it turns out a lot of those things that I was told not to do or do it this way were completely backward. Hope this video helps.